On today's show, the Washington Wizards have the worst record in the NBA, and that means they are in a phenomenal spot. If you watch college basketball this weekend, you'd know exactly why.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
DC family, you are locked on to the Washington Wizards, where you're part of our family. We thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team free and available every single day. And we remind you that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. Crazy to think about it. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Alongside the DC Sports content creating Savant Abdullah Ayubi, I'm Ben Strober, and I cover the Washington Wizards for Roundtable IO. AB, man, we're finally out the thick of the snowstorm we just got here in the DMV. I've been hung up in a hotel. It's going to be 3 nights in a row for me tonight after I stay in the hotel here in Navy Yard. It's been crazy, but I'm curious, how's your experience been in the snow?
I just want to tell you guys out there on YouTube, Ben, that there is some snow expected for Saturday and Sunday again. So let's not get too excited thinking that the snowstorm days are over. But I'm still in my house. The main road from my neighborhood just hasn't been cleared. I guess we're not priority. It's frustrating. A lot of ice everywhere. But hey, got to watch some college basketball this past weekend, and man, AJ Dybansta, Ben, 43 points. I am salivating.
We're going to talk a lot about that today. On today's show, we tell you why the Washington Wizards having the worst record in basketball is exactly where they need to be, where they want to be, and why it's going to be super helpful to them because of what these prospects did this weekend. We also talk about how the Wizards have some crucial decisions to make about the young core. Remember, Michael Winger said they have to make some assessments over the last 6 to 18 months. Yeah, we'll touch on that today. And then Deni Avdija. Everybody loves talking about him so much. So let's do it today because the Wizards take on the Trailblazers tomorrow. We'll hit that in the third and final segment. It was an incredible day of watching college basketball on Saturday, AB, and not just because the games were great. There were plenty of great games. But if you're into watching prospects, and if you're a Wizards fan, of course you're into watching prospects. You've been doing that for years now. It's getting a little tiring having to talk about watching prospects, but you're hoping this is the last year where you're really sitting down, grinding the tape, trying to see where this Wizards team is going to end up picking in the draft. But my goodness, I'll give you the numbers real quick before I give you the eye test stuff. Kingston Flemings, the point guard of the Houston, 42 points, 6 assists on 15 of 26 from the field. AJ Dybansta had 43 points on 15 of 24 shooting. Cameron Boozer had 32, 9 rebounds on 11 of 20 from the field. And Caleb Wilson had 20 as well. These prospects went nuts this weekend, AB.
Yeah, Caleb Wilson also got the head nod from Drake May. That was cool to see. But AJ against Utah, we all know how that rivalry is between BYU and Utah. Kingston Fleming didn't think he was a hype to be a top 4 pick, but I knew he had potential. But after that performance, there's a lot of expectations of him being that pick outside of the top 4. Because when it comes to me, Ben, I think those 4 guys in Peterson, Dybansta, Wilson, and Boozer are number 1 picks in the 2024 draft. Like, that's how talented they are. That's how stacked this draft class is coming up. But Kingston Fleming, that was amazing. I watched the highlights. It's just the guy can hoop. And March Madness coming around, Ben, that's going to really dictate how I view these prospects, because I always say when the lights are the brightest, you'll see who shines.
Yeah. And now to think about it, if you have the worst record in the NBA, which the Wizards currently hold by, oh, never mind, not even a half game anymore. There's a 3-way tie for the worst record in basketball by Washington, Indiana, and New Orleans are all tied, and it's all jumboed around, even though Washington has the least amount of wins, but Indiana has 35 losses and New Orleans has 36. So it's a 3-way tie. If you finish with that worst record, you cannot pick worse than 5 in this draft. And it seems like it's consensus at this point who these top 5 guys are going to be. And I think there's a lot of idea that you can't miss with these 5 guys. At first it started with you can't miss in the top 3 of this draft, but we're getting into the point here where this draft class looks so deep and there's so many different guys that could be positions of need for the Wizards that if you are guaranteed to be in the top 5 here, you're in such a good spot. And I like to talk about Flemings in this episode because you did just get Trey Young And obviously, when you trade for him, you're likely committing to at least 1 year of it because he'll pick up that player option for $49 million. But if that's not your long-term answer at guard, then it looks like right now that Flemings is probably your guy. And I've talked to some people in the Wizards building, and I know a lot of people are super high on Flemings right now. When I say I talk to people in the building, I mean I'm talking to people that cover the team. I'm not telling you that I'm talking to I'm not talking to the general manager or getting that kind of information. I'm just talking with people and seeing what they think. There's a lot of people that cover the Wizards that think Flemings would be a great fit. I was so impressed with his tape the other day, just the ability to get paint touches. That's been difficult for this Wizards team. And obviously Trey Young is going to be a guy that's going to help them in that department, get those paint touches, get 2 feet in there, distribute the basketball, find guys on the outside, slash to the bucket, and finish with authority. You're going to get that out of Trey Young, but you haven't had that right now. And I don't know if you have a long-term answer at this point. So Flemings looks like a guy that could easily fill in that role. But AB, out of all of the 5 guys that we've talked about here, who do you have your eye on the most right now? I feel like you're such a big Caleb Wilson guy, so I kind of want to ask you why.
So for me, I'm still a little AJ over Caleb, but it's just when it comes to Dybansta, the ability to take over a game and the 3-point shooting, I know is definitely going to get better. His ability to just control at such a young age the tempo of a game, and the name Dybansta just screams superstar. Wilson, very athletic. Definitely, the offensive game needs a little more polish from the outside, but I mean, it's tough because I'm going to change my mind every single night after watching a guy drop 30 and 40. I think I will say this, and I don't know if it's a hot take, but if Dybansta is on this team next year, he's going to be the one that's going to make the most of an impact first year-wise compared to any of the guys in Boozer and Peterson.
You think so?
And I think so. I just think, Ben, the way he controls the game, I think he's a better prospect than Cooper Flag. Maybe there's a reason why Cooper went up. I'm not saying that he was ducking him, but I think AJ is just that talented, and we're gonna see that when it comes to March and he's carrying that March Madness or the BYU team. I think moving forward, Wizards fans should understand the idea of making sure that we're gonna have a top 5 pick, hopefully top 4, hopefully top 3, hopefully top 2, hopefully top 1, Ben. But we're at the point where we saw reports from Tim McMahon that the Wizards could offer it back to Walker Kessler. So maybe this is a backup plan where if they get pick 5, they get Flemings, they pair up Walker Kessler with Alex Starr. Will Dawkins, he's playing chess, not checkers. He knows that, hey, if the luck's not on our side as usual, why we've seen history with these draft picks, then we'll get Walker Kessler. But right now, AJ is my guy, and I think Caleb Wilson, I still think he's on the outside looking in when it comes to the top 3, but he could potentially creep up in there. But isn't it crazy, Ben, that all these guys are this talented? Like, when have we seen a draft class this stacked? Probably since 03.
Remember we talked to Nathan Grubel of Locked On No Ceilings NBA Draft, and he said he hadn't seen a race for the number 1 pick like this, maybe ever, at least in a really long time. And I don't really have a gauge right now. I made a video talking about this on my Twitter at Strober Sports if you want to check it out. I don't have much of a gauge on this. I think by, like, what are those called? Prediction markets. I think they have Peterson as the guy predicted to 1, but that's just like fans voting on that. That's what people think. But maybe that's not the consensus from executives. I think we'd have to hear more from like sources around the league to discover that at this point. So AB, you put up not a poll, but you put on our Twitter at Locked On Wizards. You want to check us out there. If the Wizards had the first overall pick and the draft was today, who are you taking? Let's go through some of the replies here. Somebody said 1 AJ, 2 Darren Peterson with past medicals, 3 Cameron Boozer if he accepts being the Brook Lopez to SARS Giannis from a half-court offense standpoint. Then we got AJ or Boozer. As long as it's one of Wilson, AJ, or Darren Peterson, you can't go wrong. Boozer or Dybansta. Peterson is fine. I just think the other 2 fit better than he does. Dybansta could be the next Giannis. It seems like there's a lot of people in the replies, AB, that are proponent of the team drafting based on fit. I don't see it shaping up like that. I think you take who you think is the best player available. And if the fit isn't necessarily what you're thinking, like saying, oh, you need another big alongside Sar, so you have to draft Boozer or Caleb Wilson. No, I don't think it necessarily has to be like that. I think the NBA is a star-driven sport where if you have the opportunity to take the best available player, if you are picking first overall, you are picking the best player, no matter what position he plays. That's my take on it. What's yours?
I completely agree with you, Ben. We're at the point right now in sports where you always, no matter what league you are in, you are taking best player available. And that best player is going to eventually fit on what you're trying to do. I understand Cameron Boozer. He can probably fit well with Alex, but to me, it's just if you want a bona fide star, when we've been starving, scratching the surface ever since Brad left. And we have some guys in Trey, Alex, Keyshawn, but AJ, the way he can fit here in DC, I think the spotlight on him, he loves it. He's from high school. It's just, it all makes sense. And I might be wrong. Cameron Boozer might be really good and could ultimately be a better NBA player than AJ. But when it comes to coming out of this draft, I think AJ would have been number one overall pick in a lot of these past drafts, and he scratches off a lot of checks off a lot of boxes that I just think he a lot of prospects with his size at 6'9", it's just tough, and I think is a guy that can take over the game, and he'll benefit playing alongside these young guns that we have here in the district. But I might be wrong. There's going to be a lot of controversy. We got to have Nathan on again, Ben, because he's going to be spewing facts about these guys.
Yeah, I can't wait for us to get closer to the pre-draft process. We're going to have Sam Quinn from CBS Sports on Wednesday, so be tuned in for that. We'll get his thoughts on the Wizards' current standpoint, playing some more competitive basketball, although the team's lost 9 games in a row. And then we'll ask him about what he thinks they should do in the upcoming NBA draft. I can't wait for draft season. I said that last year, and then I was a little bit more disappointed after the lottery, but I'm a little bit more hopeful right now, and I really do see a light at the end of the tunnel here. All right, the Wizards have crucial decisions to make about their young core. Michael Winger said so. I believe that to be the case, and we're going to see that over the next year or so. How is this going to shape up? Let's talk about it next here on Locked On Wizards. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game that everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. The NBA trade deadline is basically here. We want to give you a free month of our new Everydayer Club to help you get ready. If you need a group chat to keep up with the chaos, join ours. The Everydayer Club gets you access to the group chat on Discord just for Wizards fans, plus national chats where you can hang out with fans from across the league. I'll be hanging out in there. AB will be in there. So come join us. You can also get ad-free versions of the show if you sign up by the trade deadline on February 5th. You can use code DEADLINE to get your first month free. Tap the link in our show notes to learn more about it. All right, Michael Winger's press conference last week, AB, where he said, we're now reaching a point in this rebuild 6 to 18 months from now where we have to find out who is going to materialize to playing in our competitive state of Washington Wizards basketball, meaning they need to weed out who is going to rise to the top of this Wizards organization. And I know you felt like that maybe could have been directed at some players, whether or not, but I think one thing's for certain is we are getting to the point where this second half of the season is going to be really interesting, because now that you've gone full youth movement, you saw the team with the young starting lineup in NBA history, 20.64 years old, the other day against Charlotte. They're going to get full evaluations on everyone here, and you might see some big decisions made as maybe as early as this summer and halfway into next year, AB.
Yeah, and a lot of Wizards fans are pointing towards Bilal Coulibaly. This is a guy who was taken out of the first round in 2023, was the first draft pick in the Will Dawkins regime. But if you look at it, you bring in hopefully a Dybansta, Boozer, whoever you can get on the wing. It's just another guy that's in a crowded wing room. And you ship off Corey Kispert and CJ McCollum to Atlanta, bring in Trey Young. Bilal, love his defensive game, Ben, but if he can't give you a consistent 10 to 12 points a game, and he can't do that without being hurt, then it's going to be hard for him to find a spot here. Maybe he can come off the bench and be that 7-8 man. I think Bob Carrington's fitted for that 6-man role. I don't know. And the value that he's at right now, I know a lot of teams in the NBA would definitely love a young wing that's athletic as he is. But at what point do we pull the plug? And I'm not saying we should, because he's only 20, 21 years old. And Will Dawkins talked about going into the season that a lot of these guys, including Bilal, aren't going to peak until year 4 or 5. But it's just tough because you've seen the development of the guys that went a year after him or 2 years after him, Trey Johnson. They're already making leaps. And it seems like Bilal is behind in the race. So I think that's one of those guys. Who do you think, Ben?
So I don't know if I think anybody necessarily from this young crop of players is like on the chopping block as we speak, but they're definitely evaluating and looking at everything. If I had to say anything certainly right now, I feel like Trey Johnson, Alex Sarr, and Keyshawn George look like your safe core three of players as it stands right now. I think those have been your best players so far this season. And they look like the guys that you can really build around, have them legitimately as your starting lineup players on a team that's really good. And now it's interesting with Bilal, because if you draft AJ, who plays on the wing, he's an absolute freak. He can shoot it from the outside. He slashes to the bucket, can get you some run defensively as well. It's going to be tough to imagine a situation where you'd have this organization choosing to go with Bilal on the floor more than they would AJ in these situations. And Dybansta, whether you get him or not, even if you get one of these bigs like Wilson or Boozer, it's going to be interesting to see like how they manage things, because if you get another big that would be in this starting lineup, then where are you putting Keyshawn George in this lineup? Are you having him come off the bench? I don't think I'd have Keyshawn George come off the bench at this point. I don't think that would make a lot of sense. I don't think, if we're really doing this whole meritocracy thing, I think Keyshawn George has earned the right to be in the starting lineup and to be a long-term piece for this Washington Wizards team. So right now, it does look a little more bleak for Bilal. I'm not saying he's not going to fit here long-term. I think he can be a long-term piece here as a six-man, a guy that comes off the bench, gives you a lot defensively. Maybe you can try to develop him a little bit more into this 3-and-D style player, because I think Bilal really does have some talent that could be useful on a really good team. And it'd be interesting to see, because the way the Wizards are set up right now, they don't seem like a team that best suits what Bilal needs, because he's just not a guy where you say, you give him the basketball and say, hey, Bilal, go get us a bucket. That's not the kind of player he is, but he might look a lot better in a legitimate offensive system that has more developed talent around him. So maybe that'd be the case here. You see him play a little bit better when this core continues to develop and you get some more talent alongside him. And if he comes off the bench and he's a pretty good guy that can give you some points off the bench and play defense, then you're in a good spot with him.
Would it be a bad look, Ben? I'm not saying we should do it, but assigning Bilal to the Capitals to the go-go. I saw the Sixers do it with Jared McCain. I saw the Hawks do it with Zachary Richard-Shea. I know it's not a possibility, but what do you think about that idea?
Sorry, say that one more time.
I was saying that we've seen some of the teams with their young guys, and the Sixers and Atlanta send their young guys to the G League, their G League team. You think it would be a bad look if the Wizards did that with Bilal?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be.
Because the thing is, Ben, that it's like, you understand my point when it's like he's playing for 2 to 3 games and gets hurt. It's just hard to catch a rhythm, and that's any sport.
No, I mean, that's definitely like a big reason why. That's definitely, I think, a big thing that's gotten in the way of him getting better offensively is to miss time on the floor. Just the jump shot alone, I feel like he struggles to get in rhythm, and I feel like he's had to rework his jump shot a lot since he's gotten the league. I think that's something they've talked about a lot, how they continue to work on his shooting mechanics. But I think when you're hurt, and especially some of the injuries he's had, like he had the surgery that he got on his thumb, that can impact the way you're trying to establish that muscle memory going forward. So maybe you're looking at a situation like that where if he really can't stay healthy, then he's just not going to get in a good enough rhythm to develop offensively. That's kind of just how it's been for this year. But, availability is a very important thing of your ability.
And you know who's coming after his spot? Jameer Watkins. He just had 5 steals, Ben, and he gave you 11 points. I'm just saying, like, seeing things like that, as a young guy, it says, hey, I got to go out there and prove my spot or else I'm going to get taken.
Yeah. It's going to be wild to see how this shapes up, like, depending on who you get in the draft. Like, where does Bub fit long term? Because I really like Bub Carrington. I think he's developed pretty well here, and obviously he's a terrific 3-point shooter this year. So it looks like he's the guy that can have a role off the bench likely for this team in the future. But you just never know how this thing is going to shape up, because when this team is ultimately competitive where they want to be, because they won't accept mediocrity, they don't want to be that type of basketball team. They want to be a top of the Eastern Conference team year in, year out. It's going to look really different than it does right now. That's the reality of the situation. That's how it always does. You're not going to have the same 15 guys here right now on a team that's competing to win the Eastern Conference. That wouldn't make any sense. This team is competing for the worst record basketball right now. And yeah, that's because they're young, but the team's going to look a lot different. That's just how it is.
Yeah, because you're going to have a high draft pick knocking on every single piece of wood out there. You're going to have a healthy Trey Young. You're going to have the year 3 of Alex R and Keyshawn George, year 2 of Trey Johnson. This team is expected to win 30-plus games next year, and 30 should be the minimum.
I think you'd hope to win more, maybe, but we'll have to see. They said they're not going to set a barometer on anything like that, so I don't know. We'll have to see about that. All right, Deni Avdija likely to return tomorrow against the Washington Wizards. Let's preview the Blazers and the Wizards when we come back on Locked On Wizards. It's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why Game Time comes in. It's become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle, and it puts the advantage back where it belongs with the fans. Pulled up the Game Time app, and I picked an upcoming game, and I had tickets within minutes. I love seeing all the price up front, no surprise fees at checkout. Being able to see the view from the seat before buying made the decision easy. Zone deals stood out. You choose the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you have great last-minute options, too, with NBA tickets showing up at solid prices. Everything feels quick, intuitive, and stress-free from start to finish. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not gametime.com. AB, I saw you put out a short on our channel a couple of days ago, and I knew there would be plenty of responses to it, because whenever his name comes up, boy, do a lot of people get involved because of how it ended here in Washington. Deni Avdija, so he is questionable to play tonight against Boston. So hopefully you can see him make his return against Boston tonight, then get to see him at Capital One Arena once again tomorrow. It's going to be interesting. I think there's always going to be a discourse about Deni Avdija, especially when the Wizards play him, which isn't often. You only play him 2 times a year. But given the ascension that we've seen from Avdija this year, who's become a 27 point, 7 rebound, 7 assist player, a lot of people believe it was a big mistake to move on from him. What did you gather from the replies we got on that short?
Yeah, it's tough because 100 years from now, Ben, there's going to be Wizards fans on their deathbed still complaining about the Deni Avdija trade, and there's just nothing we can do to convince them otherwise. It's like a little 50-50 where it's like, we traded Deni, he was going to be a star, we should have traded Bilal, any of these young guys. We traded Deni Avdija before Kyle Kuzma, which, okay, that I agree with. I thought keeping Kuzma for that long, but it's a sunk cost. It is what it is. We're at the point right now where you have to understand that keeping Deni was only going to get us back into the fold of being mediocre. And that's something that we're just not accepting anymore after we heard what Michael Winger said in his press conference. If we had Deni on this team right now, we'd be probably one game or 2 or 3 games below or above 500, and you're taking yourself out of that top 8 pick. It just wouldn't make sense. The return, maybe that 2029 first-round pick, maybe Bub Carrington molds into a really good 6-man in the NBA. But at the time, it just didn't make any sense to keep him. And it does suck because we kind of knew that he was going to be a rising star. How he was using the Scott Brooks system, standing in the corner, just wasn't a fit that Wizards fans expected. He needs to have the ball. But look what he's doing in Portland. I don't think this Trailblazers team this year is going to – I don't think they're going to win. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to make the play-in and get booted. That Western Conference is just so competitive. And, again, it does suck. And I know he's going to play tomorrow. And knowing how Wizards fans and just their history with former players, he's probably going to drop 40 on this team. But if you really were a realist and you looked back and saw the bigger picture, it did make sense to trade him.
Yeah. And I'm not gonna sit here and tell people how to be fans of this team. If you hate that they made the move, that's fine. I think fans should believe whatever they want. If you absolutely despise the front office for moving on from Deni Avdija, that's completely fine. Like, stick with your guns if that's how you truly feel about it. I don't necessarily agree, but it's fine. I'm not going to be mad at anybody for disagreeing with something that we say or disagreeing with the front office. That's just the nature of sports. People are always going to have discourse about these type of things, and I love it. Now, about the Trailblazers, 23-23 right now. You mentioned it's such a stacked Western Conference right now. They've been playing some damn good ball as of recent. They were 8-2 in their last 10 prior to that. I know Deni had missed a game or two, I believe, with an injury. I think he's been battling a back thing as of recent. So the most recent game they lost to Toronto, he was unavailable for that one after he came back and played against Miami. But just a couple of weeks ago, Avdija was going crazy for this Portland team. And if you just like look up and down in terms of like who they have on this Portland team, I think Donovan Clingan has been a really nice piece at the big man position. I know there's a lot of people that were high on him instead of Sarr back in he was in the same draft class, right?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, so he's turned out to be one of the better players from that draft class as well. Shadon Sharps, Robert Williams III. There's decent talent on this Portland team. And I know they have a little bit older talent in Drew Holiday right now as well. Caleb Love's been a rookie that's emerged and somehow found his name like better than Trey Johnson. A couple of rookie comparisons right now, which I don't think necessarily should be the case. But it's interesting. Like, this Portland team has played some good basketball. I think this is a game that the Wizards should go all in on trying to win this one. And you feel like maybe this front office, they hear a lot of the noise that exists about the trade with the Trailblazers. How funny would it be if the Wizards actually beat this Trailblazers team and Bub Carrington scores 30 points? I think it would be awesome. I'm not saying that because someone to like rub it in or anything like that, but you've already had a double-digit losing streak this year where you got to 14 losses in a row. You had 2 of them last year. I didn't want them to have double-digit losing streaks this year, but that is the reality of the situation. And this feels actually really dumb of me to say right now because we had a whole episode about how it's pretty important that they stay with the worst record in the NBA so you can pick up the top 5. But damn, like if we're going to win one more game this season, like if you could tell me we could pick one more game to win the rest of the year, I might pick tomorrow. I think I'd pick tomorrow's game. I think it'd be pretty inconsequential if you win this game because you're going to lose a lot more.
If I'm Bub Carrington, I'm going to say, hey, you guys lost Deni, but you got me, and I'm going to prove why that was the right decision. I don't understand from some of these Wizards fans that just are hanging on and just thinking that this team would have been contending right now if Deni was still on the team. It just wouldn't have made any sense. You probably wouldn't land Alex Sarr, and some moves would have been made. It's a whole butterfly effect. To me, it happened, and you just move forward. You pray for Deni to have a really good career. I know he has a lot of fans. He has quite the fan club. And I just think if you're a Wizards fan, look at the young guys that you have and see what the capabilities from Keyshawn George and Alex Sarr and how they could eventually take those jumps like Deni did. And I'm going to say it again, guys. I don't think Deni, just by himself, he's obviously going to have some talent around him to succeed. But this season, if they make it out the first round, you got me. I don't think they'll get a playoff spot. I think they're going to be in the play-in. It wouldn't make any sense. And it goes back to those days with Brad where you're just competing and he's dropping 30 points per game, but you're a little below or a little above 500, and you ultimately don't go anywhere. And that, my friends, is purgatory.
Yeah, I think Portland will need to build around him because I think Avdija could be a really phenomenal second option, third option, whatever it may be. Like, he looks like a really, really good player right now because that's who he is. He's an all-star. I think he's going to be an all-star this year. Probably candidate to win the most improved player award. So that's awesome. That's good for Deni, good for Portland. Like it's worked out from that sense. It's going to be interesting to see what steps they take next. 3 to 5 years from now, we'll see where both these organizations are. If Portland's a team that gets back to the Western Conference Finals for consecutive years and the Wizards haven't even cracked the playoffs at that point, then yeah, you could go back and you could look back at this trade and say, yeah, maybe the Wizards missed the mark on that one because they weren't able to make the right decisions to move forward. But it's just very early in this process. Bub Carrington is a 20-year-old player, far from a complete product. Deni Avdija is 25, and he's really molded.
That's what I'm saying, Ben. Sorry to cut you off. Sorry to cut you off. Wizards fans, if you're giving Deni up until 25, why aren't you giving Bub the same treatment? Isn't that crazy, Ben? Where it's like, oh, Bub hasn't hit. Look at the age difference. It's insane.
Well, I'm trying to remember, what was the discourse around Deni like in his first couple of years? Because it really took him a little while, and maybe part of it was Scott Brooks' fault. I definitely can agree with that notion. But the first 2 years of his career were not great. Didn't show a ton. Like, he had a couple of flashes. I know that I remember in his 4th year here, I think he dropped 40 once or twice. And then you go, okay, like, this guy's really starting to ascend. And that's why the Wizards sold really high at that point.
And I remember there was a debate between keeping him or Rui, and then eventually trading Rui away, and then trade
The Rui
Deni.
trade is awful.
Yeah, because you got Kendrick.
Like, what?
I miss Rui, man. I miss Justin Kutcher saying Konnichiwa and Origato. That was good times. I knew Rui was going to be a good player when he got traded to the Lakers. It was a perfect situation.
Wasn't it really funny that they traded him? They got like nothing back for it, and that's the old front office. And then game 1 of the Lakers series against Memphis, Rui scored 25. In that same day, Tommy Shepard got fired. Like, was Ted really watching the game? Like, damn, like, we got nothing back for this guy.
We got to pull the plug, man.
They say he's gone, and that was it. That's where we are right now was because of that game.
I said we mentioned Deni is 25 years old. That starting lineup, youngest NBA history, was 20.64 on average. That's half a decade difference. Just give it some time, guys.
Just give it some time. Give it some time. An important final half of the season upcoming here. It's going to be a blast. A lot of draft prospects to watch.
Oh, Dybansta and Peterson coming up, man. That's going to be exciting.
Oh my God, we're gonna have to have a watch party just to just to watch that game. But man, busy week. We got Wizards Blazers tomorrow. We'll have the coverage for you of that. Sam Quinn will be on the show as well. And also tonight at 6:30, we find out who is making the Rising Stars game. And AB, I think the Wizards are going to get at least 3 there, maybe 4, but we'll have to see.
Trey, Keyshawn, Alex, book it.
Do you think Bub gets a nod?
Is there like a max on how many a team can get? Or
I don't know. Am I dumb for not researching that? I don't know. It's not that big of a deal for me, but you'd like to see some.
I think I could see if it's 4, then it's Bub. I remember was it 1 year where it was it last year or the year? Yeah, it was last year when it was Keyshawn. Or no, was it Bub, Alex, and Bilal? Right? I forgot.
I don't know. We'll have to see. We will have to see. Thank you for tuning in to Locked On Wizards. Tomorrow, be sure to check us out. We'll break down some of the news that comes out tonight before we get you Wizards and Blazers. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Wizards so you get all the latest. Find us on Twitter at Locked On Wizards. Never miss an episode by joining the Everydayer Club. It's built for you. Get Locked On Wizards ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to LockedOnWizards.supercast.com to join the club. For my co-host Abdullah Ayubi, I'm Ben Strober, DC Family. Talk to you later.